Okay, my tripod does not want to cooperate with me today. I think that's great, we just need to fix the hair. It's avant-garde. Ooh, I like this kind. Is that giving me the teacher vibes? Not really. We are here to talk about Hoyas. As per usual. Today I wanted to talk to you about Hoya that I purchased in Sweden in May of this year, and it is in bloom today. I wanted to show you the flowers, and I wanted to give you some opinions that I have on this Hoya. I will briefly cover some of the history of it. It's very short, very brief, not really history, but where it was discovered and what I've learned about this Hoya. I've only been growing this for, can I calculate time? Let's see, May, June, July, 3 to 4 months. So I cannot really give you any care tips. And honestly, I think everybody needs this Hoya. Let's remove that tension. It is hoyalockii. I think this would make for a great thumbnail photo. I usually forget to take my thumbnail photos, but this is the one. This is the money shot. Oh, we lost it. I purchased this Hoya in May of this year as unrooted cutting, and I bought it from my friend in Sweden, Carolina. Her Instagram is freehitianask. I will leave it down below, and I think you can reach out to her on Instagram to ask if she has some Hoyas to sell. I think she will only send to European Union, and that's, for you to arrange with her. I just wanted to show you the Hoya really, and just to mention where I got it from, because a lot of people will ask, so let's get out of the way. So as you can see, this Hoya already bloomed. It is actually not the first try. It tried to bloom before. I think it was on lower branches, but it didn't really make it. So this is the first official bloom, but not the first peduncle that this cutting produced. As you can see, it's not a very big cutting, and I can't honestly remember. I think all of this is new growth. 4 nodes in 3 to 4 months, so it's not super slow, but it's not super fast. I have it in a mix of cocoa peat and some perlite, and this is just regular plastic cup that I sometimes use for semi-hydro. I will put holes in them, but sometimes I will use them to root the cuttings that I also trade or sell, and I will reuse them multiple times, but I don't put holes in them because it's much easier for me to root plants. I don't have to water as much. I don't have to worry about small cuttings drying out. So this is how I have been growing this Hoya for the past 4 months. And as you can see, it's completely fine. The roots look great. They are nice and white. There are some roots down in the bottom and on this side too. And basically, I am very careful with the watering. I am not a person who will overwater plants. If anything, I will underwater them, so I will just give it a bit of water on top, let it go down, and then if I see that the water is standing there, I will just dip it out. The most challenging thing for me about hoyalockii is actually getting hoyalockii to root. For a couple of days, I tried to root hoyalockii in water, but it didn't really work for me. And both hoyalockii and Hoya multiflora were tricky for me to root. I did make a mistake there, and I will share it with you so you don't have to repeat it unless you really want to make mistakes and that's something that really excites you. Then, go ahead. I placed the cutting in this cup, actually, in the mix of cocoa peat and perlite. I just sprayed the mix with water with a spraying bottle to keep it moist. I placed the cutting and left it to root. And it did root, in fact, after I think 3 or 4 weeks. But in the process, the leaves did become wrinkly and yellow. As you can see, some of them are still yellow, like this one. Some of these leaves, when they arrived, were already dehydrated and a bit chlorotic because it did have to travel about 2 weeks as unrooted cutting to arrive to me. And really my mistake was that I should have put it in a propagation box. I was really anxious when I saw that the leaves are losing water. And maybe that's because this was slightly larger cutting. It was 2 or 3 nodes, so maybe perhaps that's why. Hoya multiflora lost a couple of leaves, but she has some new growth, and this is, I believe, clone SV406. It's in the same potting mix, and they do look slightly similar. Hoyalockii, I'm not sure if this is due to my conditions. It appears to have slightly lighter leaves. I do keep both of them now a bit away from my LED light because I did notice when you keep them way too close to the LED light, they will start to get very chlorotic, very yellow. You can also notice that Hoya multiflora has slightly larger leaves than hoyalockii and actually a bit wider leaves than hoyalockii. When I read the publication, this seems to be generally true, that Hoya multiflora will produce leaves that are slightly larger and not as narrow. When I touch the old leaves on Hoya multiflora and older leaves on hoyalockii, there is some difference. This feels more matte, though it's not pubescent. Hoya multiflora is not pubescent at all. But the difference between Hoya multiflora and lockii, aside from the flower, is that hoyalockii has a pubescent stem, or the vine. Hoya multiflora doesn't. So there is some difference. Hoya multiflora will have a white flower, but it will be a bit towards yellow or orange. I think with SV406, which is this clone of Hoya multiflora, the flower will gradually turn to orange towards the end. With hoyalockii, it is different. The flower is completely white. As the flowers get a bit older, it seems to me that they are not as pure white as before. They seem to me more whiter in the past week. By the way, this has been in bloom for over a week. It's basically the last days of its bloom. So, you know, taking time to record the video, Miro. But it seems to me that over time, these flowers turn a bit, not creamish, but it's not as striking white, I guess, as the day when it opened. What I also noticed is when the flowers first open in the first couple of days, the scent is the strongest. It smells best towards the night, and it smells like chocolate, and it is really chocolatey smell. I love the way this Hoya smells. I think it is the best Hoya I smelled so far. However, as the time goes on, it is not as intense. It is actually never very intense in the first couple of days either. It's just that, you know, in the beginning you can really detect that chocolatey smell. You have no doubt in the first 2-3 days, but as the time goes on, there is some doubt, but it still smells during night time. However, it is never as strong as, you know, you walking into a room and being able to smell it. It was never that strong. Hoyalockii is indeed very similar to Hoya multiflora, and both can be found in Vietnam. The only difference is that with Hoya multiflora, you can find it in other areas in Southeast Asia. Hoyalockii was first described in 2011, and as I said, it was found in Vietnam, in Thu Thien Hue province. And if you remember that video that I made, I think it was 10 Hoyas really worth your money or something like that. Hoya Thu Thien Huensis is from the same province. It's on my wish list, and I have yet to acquire that Hoya, but it's also a very, very gorgeous Hoya. I don't know why I brought that up. I just, you know, my brain went there. Anyways, it was observed on 1,000-meter altitude in a forest. It is an epiphytic plant, which surprises me because when you get hoyalockii, you will see that it's one of those Hoyas that would like more water. So it makes me think that it's very humid in that area. It must rain a lot. I don't think this Hoya would do really well in mix of bark and moss, or you would have to water very frequently. For now, I will keep it in a mix that consists with cocoa peat and perlite. It seems to do really well, and it really helps me keep it watered. Typically, hoyalockii will bloom for about 2 weeks, and I can tell you it's been more than 10 days since these flowers first opened, so it's very remarkable in my opinion that it can stay in bloom for so long. Usually Hoyas will not bloom for this long. They can bloom from 1 day to several days. Why I would recommend this Hoya to everyone, because it will stay in bloom the longest. It can be very disappointing, if you ask me, when you wait for a Hoya to bloom and then it will stay in bloom for only a day or 2. You know, you have to do all this growing and waiting, and then the flowers are so short-lived. At least with hoyalockii, you get to enjoy them for a couple of weeks, and I think that's a really nice reward. So that really makes it one of my most favorite Hoyas, which is not a proper way to say it, but we'll just move past that. What? I'm like Celine Dion. I'm doing warm-ups. because I can't talk today for some reason. The lippage area isn't working properly. Hoyalockii was described by two botanists, a Vietnamese botanist, De Pham Van, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and a Russian botanist, Leonid Averyanov, and I'm pretty sure that's similar to how you would pronounce it. As I said, it was described in 2011, and it was then when they suggested that this Hoya should be treated as critically endangered because they found less than 50 mature specimens in the wild, which is not a lot. In fact, the area where hoyalockii was found is very small and is getting smaller because of deforestation, road construction, and other human activities. Are you surprised? We don't need forests. Who needs that oxygen anyways? Another thing that I quite like about hoyalockii is the growth habit. It kind of grows upwards, and I did notice in some of the photos from the wild that it kind of starts to lean at one point, but I think this will be much easier to stake and keep staked. Let's hope that is true, instead of putting it on a trellis. I am very bad at trellising Hoyas, and let me tell you, in the 4 years or so since I've started growing Hoyas, my trellising skills have gradually deteriorated. They're becoming worse and worse and worse. It's kind of like The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, but except in the end there you will get Brad Pitt, and here you just get I don't know, a mess? Does that make me Kate Blanchett? My Hoya trellising skills are like Madonna's acting skills. We keep trying, but no one is here for it. I don't know how we ended up there. I do apologize. I really do hope that I will be able to just, stake this plant and let it grow vertically, and that will be the end of that because I really do not want to attempt any sort of trellising. I could probably form it into a small bush. I would not mind having a Hoya bush. I would love that, in fact. I have seen larger specimens of both of these Hoyas, and it does seem that they don't really branch out. Even when you cut them, they will kind of just continue. Maybe for some people they will branch out, but for most of them it seems that they are just growing vertically, which I do not mind at all. Another thing to love about hoyalockii is that as soon as it roots, you can expect it to produce a peduncle. It seems that is the case for everyone, that this is a Hoya that just blooms very early on, so you can enjoy flowers even if it's a very small plant. And if you decide to want to keep a very small plant, it would be just very easy for you to cut your hoyalockii, root it again, and you will have flowers in a couple of months. So I think that is great. You can possibly always keep it small. I don't promise I will. I would love to have hoyalockii that is big with a lot of flowers. And I actually do like the foliage a lot. There is some splash on the foliage. Unfortunately, I do think that my green is not the healthiest green. I do think that this Hoya would like less light. It was on my Hoya shelf. Imagine that the lights are turned on and it was too close to the light. Now, I moved it next to my Hoya latifolia, and it is only getting some residual light from the LEDs that are on the shelf, and it seems to be much better. The leaves are looking much healthier. They're not getting yellow. And Hoya multiflora also was a bit yellow when it was under the lights, so I moved it on the top level, and because on the top level I keep some very tall plants, this is quite far away from the light, but it keeps growing really well, and it did produce a peduncle. So I don't think that these two really need a lot of light. Of course, that doesn't mean to keep them in the dark. Even though I don't keep it directly under the light, there are, how many? There are 8 LED lights, and all that residual light is kind of here. And there is also light coming through the window. I need to water my orchid. And there is a bit of residual light from the Mars light that is hanging above. If you have a home that is not extremely bright, if you're only working with northwest and northeast facing windows and you don't want to invest money in any additional light, I do think hoyalockii will be a great choice for you. It does not get sun-stressed like some of the other Hoyas, of course, and it just only gets chlorotic. The leaves are also on the thinner side for Hoyas. I would say that they are about the same thickness as Hoya multiflora. Maybe Hoya multiflora has leaves that are more rigid. I saw recently that some people confuse hoyalockii and Hoya multiflora with Hoya imperialis, and that some people consider Hoya imperialis to be a thin-leaved Hoya. They're quite different, and I'm going to show you on the camera all three of them so you can see for yourself. Maybe this will be useful for some, maybe it will not. If you don't think it's useful, just skip it. So you can see my Hoya uglieris. It's imperialis. By the way, this happened in the tent under Mars hydrolite. Yeah, it was way too intense, but now the leaves are looking more normal under regular LED light. But if you can see, there is quite a difference between these two. The leaves are much larger on Hoya imperialis, much darker. The stem is much thicker. It is pubescent, actually, the stem of Hoya imperialis, just like hoyalockii, but the leaves are tougher in my opinion. It's quite a big difference, even if you compare it to Hoya multiflora. Do not tip over. If you compare it to Hoya multiflora, you will see that there is quite a bit of difference between these two Hoyas. Maybe it's hard to spot in the video, but if we compare the leaf blades, you can see that they are quite different. In the publication for hoyalockii, it does say that the lateral veins are more prominent than with Hoya imperialis, but I don't really see that. I can see the lateral veins in both of these Hoyas, and I will include a photo for you to see, and you tell me, do you think that they are more pronounced? I do think they're about the same. Maybe it's the light, I'm not quite sure, but I like the foliage in any case. I do know some people who do not like hoyalockii for its foliage. I will not call any names.
I'm ready to give you my brutal opinion.
Or maybe I will. Even if you don't like the foliage, I think over time you will come to appreciate it because of the flower, because it's very elegant. There is something special about it, and out of all the Hoyas that bloomed for me so far, I would say it is my favorite, and I'm very happy that I got it. I was on the fence for a year or so. I didn't really think I would like it. Now I want all Hoyas that look similar to hoyalockii. I want more Hoya multifloras, and I want Hoya thuathienhuensis and medinalifolia. That is all for today about hoyalockii. I really do hope I convinced you to get one. I really think you need it. I'm like Hoya Mafia. I will just convince you that you need to get every Hoya out there. I have absolutely no remorse about this. I don't know how difficult it is to find. It wasn't so easy for me, I have to say. I do think it's not too difficult, but it may be a bit on the expensive side compared to some other Hoyas like Hoya lacunosa, Hoya linearis in Europe. It's a bit more expensive than that, but it's not as expensive as Hoya undulata. So it kind of sits in the middle there, which is around, I think, 30 euros, something like that, maybe a bit less depending where you are. In any case, lovely Hoya to have. I hope you can get one. I hope it blooms for you very soon. And just don't make a stupid mistake when rooting it. Put it in a propagation box, which I will show you now. I forgot I need to do that. Okay, so this is the propagation box that I actually wanted to show you. I don't know if you can see that, but this verticillata, the roots are actually growing on top. Fortunately, this hoyacari lost a leaf. I think that's due to the lack of gentleness. Gunungading also has a root there. Such a cute cutting. I love when they're small cuttings and then they start to grow and then you don't know how to trellis. I think my biggest problem with Hoyas is I don't know how to trellis them well. I will never learn. And Hoya ranks, and look at that. You will have to leave soon and I will miss you so much. The Hoya that I will not miss in particular is albomarginated incressata. Not my favorite. Anyways, that's for the prop box. I don't really even know what that segment is about. I hope you enjoyed this brief video. Let's hope it was brief. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel because fantastic things sometimes happen, sometimes not. It's life. Sometimes they say things. That's all I can tell you. I hope you're having a wonderful day and I will see you very soon in another video. That's all. It's time for me to shut up and wave you a goodbye. That was the most horrible wave ever. Bye! I would like to take some time to thank my patrons. A big shout out to my $5 patrons: Betsy Begonia, Bonnie Harris, Danube Daniels, Dinsla, Hoyas and Whatnots, Jessica Hall, Kelsey Jager, Kristen Sherwood, Mars B, Mary, Melissa Walker, Nicole Ferranti, Spinach Geek, Tanya, TJWO, 2 Notes, 3 Leaves, Vicky Dingler, and Zlakov Niponi. Also, a thank you to my $3 patrons: Angelina Farnan, April Arroyo, Becca Panyard, Brianna Phillips, Catherine G, Jerry's Garden, Lisa Helling, Morgan Kennedy, Nerdy Kathy, Nikki, and Ringlov. And a thank you to my $1 patrons, Caroline and Jacinta. Thank you all so much for your support. I hope that you are enjoying the videos and that you loved Hoyalockii. I noticed that some of you voted for Hoya Carey. I do not appreciate Hoya Carey as much as Hoyalockii. I think it was pretty obvious from my Instagram story that it was Hoyalockii that people should have voted for, you know, in Hoya duels between the flower of Hoya Carey and Hoyalockii. Very disappointing. Very, very disappointing. I hope you two are all having a wonderful day and see you soon. Also, I saw that ending videos like this, you know, reaching for the camera, is very 2014, so I'm just not gonna do that.